on television.
Hawk
TV.
What time is it?
It is 11:19.
Okay.
Because you got to do show prep. Absolutely. I want to talk about that. I really do. Again, welcome back. It's segment 3 of Hawk TV, and it's Dan Cole, the Common Man, and we're going to find out real quickly here how you become the Common Man. So talk about your inroads into the fan.
The capable Carl Allen and I were working at the radio station in Forest Lake, and he said, "You ever heard of that KFAN radio station? It had been 2 years in the making." I said, "Never heard of it." He goes, "Give it a listen sometimes, all sports." So I listen, I hear Chad and Barrero, and I call Carl and go, "That doesn't sound so hard. We could do that." So we put a mock tape together at my buddy's ad agency studio, sent it to the fan. Our timing was perfect because they had all their daytime programming, weekday programming set, local. They needed local weekend programming. They were, still doing the ESPN radio or Fox or whatever, Sporting News Radio, all that on the weekend. So they wanted some local talk.
Sure.
Our tape came at the right time. They interviewed us. They said they liked what they heard. They said, "We'll give you a month of weekends and see how it goes." Boom, they liked what they heard. So we were fill-in guys, weekend guys. And then for me, a spot came open as the board op and update guy for the Chad and Barrero show, the afternoon show, the calling card of the radio station. I said, "I'll do that." They offered that to me. I needed the money. And so they hired me for that. So I was working, my original job here was first part-time weekend talk or fill-in, and then I became the board op for the Chad and Barrero show.
What year was that?
That was 1993.
93.
Yeah.
That was right at the very beginning of things, though. I mean, things were just coming around.
They've been on the air the station had been on the air for 2 years.
Right.
Like I say, they were just they were actually doing a morning show that was like an ESPN Sports Center.
Oh, okay.
Dan Culhane, I think, was doing it, and it would be just 20-minute segments of going, same 20, they would do 3 20-minute segments every hour in the morning that were just a repeat, basically, of local news and sports. And then, and national, where they had highlights and sound bites and that. Then they went to Dave and Shave. Randy Shaver and the late Dave Huffman, former Viking, were on 9 to noon. Then it was Eric and Larry noon to 3, and then it was Chad and Barrero from 3 to 6. And then they tried a few different things in the 6 to 9 slot. They had a few changes there.
Yeah, you were there for a little bit.
That was my first shot.
Yeah, right.
I kept waiting for that job, and I kept bugging the program director at the time, Mark Ginther, "When are you going to give me a shot? When are you going to give Carl and I a shot?" He said, "It's never going to happen here." He actually said that to me. He said, "It'll never happen." Matter of fact, 2 weeks before he gave me 2 to 4 weeks before he gave me a chance to do the evenings, he said, "Look, it's never going to happen here. If you want, you might want to check with. I think they're doing sports talk in Fargo. I think they might be doing it down in Rochester. It's just never going to happen here." So I actually called Mike Cronforce, the placement director at Brown, and said, "I need work." My gal was living in St. Cloud at the time. I said, "See if you can find me some kind of a job up in St. Cloud." I was ready to leave the fan. 2 or 3 weeks later, Ginther comes up to me and says, "Come into my office, sit down." He goes, "Tell you what I'm going to do. We can't find the right person for the evening slot. I'm going to give you 2 weeks to see how it goes. It's not you and Carl, it's just you." They can't afford to pay 2 guys.
Yeah,
They
of course.
liked my potential. They said, "Give you a chance." I did the 2 weeks, and he liked it, and they gave me a 1-year contract and went from there.
So, but you continued doing Chad and Barrero.
I kept doing Chad and Barrero
of
as well.
course. Yeah, which I remember you were doing updates and such like that as well. How long did it take them to make you a part of that show?
Well, like I say, when I first, when I was still doing part-time talk, they said, there was an opening for the board op.
Well, I'm sorry, I don't mean that way. I mean to literally make you a character on the show.
Oh, well, that was, I think, fairly early on. At first, you kind of, I was told immediately, you don't speak unless you're spoken to. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. And then, I don't know, I think a couple of times they asked me to chime in. And, I tried to make my updates kind of entertaining so they would stand out and be different. So I think they noticed a sense of humor there that they kind of liked at first, sadly. And then they just started inviting me into the conversation. And I really think they felt like this is a nice third wheel, somebody to pick on, somebody that's fairly quick. And I didn't mind playing that role.
Yeah.
I would say things intentionally. I think Meat Sauce probably does the same kind of thing.
Of course he does.
I've even tried to take him under my wing and say, play your character. If that's what they want you to do, play with it. It's all in fun. It's showbiz. It's radio. It's entertainment. Run with it. And so I knew I'm going to say some things I don't really believe, but I know that those guys can pick on me for it. And I did mine. Brian Lambert, who used to write for the Pioneer Press, did a real nice story on me when I originally got my show, which was real nice of him and really helped. And he basically called me the flat catcher from 3 to 6. And I didn't mind. I don't mind catching flat.
Yeah, right.
It's fun.
Did they hate each other back then?
No, absolutely not. No.
No.
There was no hatred between the two of them. I think as time went on, I think Barrero just got annoyed with the idea of I want to do it my way, strictly my way. I want to be on my own, and so he went on his own. And so
it seems so ridiculous now, these years later, that they were on together for so long. It was a great show, don't get me wrong, but they're such strong personalities. It's amazing that they were able to coexist for so long.
Yeah, they did for a long time, but it was a very good radio show
so
together.
good.
They were really good together. They, they had the best guests. They talked about all the topics that were pertinent to people, and I just like sitting back and kind of soaking it all in and chiming in when I wanted to chime in. So yeah, it was.
That's a good
I liked
show.
it. It was nice. And then one day I got off the show. It's kind of a funny story. It was actually, Barrera was on by himself. Hartman was gone somewhere. And back in those days, if we had a guest, you had to punch some buttons to make sure network feeds wouldn't get into their head. So I punched in some, Barrera gets some guests on the phone. I get up and go to somebody's office to tell them how I'd run the radio station. I just start coming back, and Barrera storms out of the studio, and he goes, "What are you doing? Get back in there. Get in that chair and stay in that chair. We'll find somebody who will." What had happened was the guest had heard some network feeds coming over, and he's going, "Dan, I'm sorry, I really can't hear you. Something's going on." So I should have been in the chair. I was out goofing around, and so Barrera had to go to break, and it was not good. So I yelled back at him, and he yelled at me, and then after the show, we kind of talked it out, and he actually looked at me, and he said, "Chad and I have never really even asked you. I mean, are you tired of working on the show? Maybe you don't want to," because now I had my own show. I was on 1 to 3.
Yeah.
And I said, maybe I don't want to be on it anymore. Not that I really didn't, but I just thought, wow, if I could free up that 3 hours in the afternoon, just have my own talk show host, and I owe my, getting a chance to those guys. Because if I'm not on that show,
of course,
I don't think my weekend talk show is going to work into a full-time thing.
Right.
So being on that show with those guys was absolutely instrumental in allowing me to have a forum and to be recognized.
Where did the common man come from?
Well, that was when the program director, Mark McGinter, said, "I'm going to give you 2 weeks and see how it goes full-time." And so Bo Mitchell, who's still a contributor to this radio station, is on with PA often. He was my producer at the time. I just had, one guy would produce one night, somebody else a couple of nights. And I went on the air and I was doing the old, because of the lineup I told you about earlier about Shaver and Huffman and Barrera and Hartman, I basically did this bit where I said, "Oh, sure, I don't have I'm not a TV sportscaster like Shaver. Oh, sure, I'm not a former football player like Huffman. Oh, sure, I'm not a columnist like Barrera was. Oh, sure, I'm not a play-by-play guy like Hartman was. I'm just an average guy off the streets." So I went to break, and Bo Mitchell, my producer, came in and said, "You're just a common man, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah, you're right. I am just a common man." And I didn't start calling myself the common man. I went back on the air and said, "I'm just a common man." And then calls kept coming in, "Hey, common, hey, common, hey, common man." And they just started calling me. That's so I just said, "Okay, I'll go with it. I can call me whatever you want. Just continue to call."
Yeah.
And that's how it started. So Bo Mitchell actually came up with common man, and then the listeners actually dubbed me the common man because they were the ones that started calling me that.
When did they start becoming guys like
Just
guys?
"You're my guy"? They called in, "You're my guy," and it all actually started, I think, on the Chad and Barrera show, where they had two guys calling. Were both Pat the glasses guy and Pat the officiating guy. So they had to distinguish the two Pats. So they called him glasses guy and officiating guy, and then it just kind of morphed into my show where every guy would call in and say, "I'm this guy, I'm that guy," and that ran for ages.
Oh my
that
gosh.
thing that was really a good radio bit. I mean, that thing, I know it's been done in other markets now too, because, and I always joke, I always compare it to, it's true though, it's the WKRP in Cincinnati. Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name. If you're just Tom from Burnsville, how many Tom, Dick, and Harrys are calling from Burnsville? But if you're Vomit Guy,
They love it.
everybody knows who you were. They go, "Oh, I remember him calling." So you actually developed a personality. Show became an actual party line. It used to be all caller driven.
Yeah.
And that was not by accident. I was going to do the standard radio show where I had, and I never forget it. It was when the Vikings were still with Tampa Bay in the same division. I had a beat writer. It was in August. I had a beat writer from somewhere in Tampa Bay, Detroit, Green Bay, and Chicago to talk, about their football, about the Bears, the Bucks, the Lions, the Packers. And I had full phone lines. And I said, when we come back, we're going to talk to Joe Bag of Donuts from the Detroit Free Press. Then I saw all the people just drop off, and I thought, and then Joe Bag of Donuts from the Detroit Free Press comes on to talk about the Lions offensive line. I thought, well, I don't want to do this.
No.
I don't care about this. This isn't any fun. I'd rather talk to those people. And so I just stopped doing guests. That's why I don't do guests to this day. I'd rather just talk and have people call. Now people don't call in anymore, which is odd. But so that's why I just didn't do guests. I just thought it was more fun to just let people call in and make it a party line. The show was kind of a party line, and then people developed characters, and it was a lot of fun.
Do you miss that?
Yes and no. I mean, I miss the people calling because you wonder if they're still out there listening. But sometimes, and no offense to callers, some of them are brilliant and had a good act. Others, you have to work really hard to make them sound good and interweave it into it. So sometimes it can actually be harder work. If you're doing all callers, the show can really slow down if the caller doesn't bring a lot to the table. And to try to make him sound good, sometimes it's a lot of work to try to set them up and move them around and get to know the personality. So it could be hard to do at the same time. But sometimes it was beautiful. You get guys that actually develop personalities. Walter, the Secretary of Insight, the skipper, Steelers guy, Bill Bates guy, hunting gal, think it ain't gal. You get a people, and we had literally dozens and dozens of people that actually had a personality and brought something to the table. It was a lot of fun. It was actually, it could become easy. Just bring them on one after another. They do their thing. You do a couple of punchlines and move on. It just got difficult as time people stopped calling in after a while. And it was hard work too.
Sure. Well, every bit runs its course, I guess. But wow, what momentum! I can remember listening, I should say, to the development of the Common Man program. I mean, it was something to watch. I think it's similar to what happened with PA and Dubé. I mean, you saw them start off and get their shot and just kind of blow up. The same thing happened.
That was the classic temporary layoff. They just happened to use that music, the song from Good Times at the end, where they played the temporary layoff to permanent payoff. I used to joke about it with them after they made hats. I still have one. I think there was only one in existence because they were temporary layoff, permanent payoff for them. Because the reason PA and Dubé got a chance to do that show was because Jesse was going to run for governor. The plan was after Jesse got destroyed in the election, he would come right back to that slot. Well, lo and behold, Jesse wins. He doesn't come back. They just keep PA and Dubé there. Had Jesse not won, he would have come back to that slot. PA and Dubé would never have existed. Or maybe PA and Dubé would have replaced the Common Man, Dan Cole. I don't know, But so it's funny how things happen. But that's how they got their start. Yeah, and that was an excellent show.
I got to let you go here in a minute because I know you got a show to do, and we've run a long time. But a couple of things I have to address quickly. Number one, talking about show prep. People, you always make the joke, but I think that's part of the genius of who you are and what you do. Is your life is show prep, right?
I say that. Tom Bernard once accused me of stealing that from him. You stole that from me. That's what I've always said. I don't remember Tom saying it, and I'm not saying he didn't, but I do kind of look at it that way, and I really do. It's not that I don't. I glance at the newspaper, take a look, talk to people, read things, that whole thing. But if I try to make it too structured like some of the other shows, like, Barrera's brilliant, PA's brilliant. Their shows, I'm not saying they're completely regimented, but they know what they're going to do each segment and dedicate things to. If I try that, that's just not me. I got to just go on and just start talking and, see what, take the long and winding road. That can be bad too, because if you don't have it that day, I think you lose listeners. They go, I like Common, but man, he's just meandering today. Boom, I'm gone. So I try to be a little more structured now. But yeah, I can't. If I try to really prep a show like this is what I'm going to do in segment 1, 2, 3, it just doesn't work for me.
Yeah,
I can't
right.
do it.
Well, that's the genius of it, though, and it's showbiz. You're not going to be on every day. That's just how it is. Yeah.
That's it.
If Common and the Family Cold had been given 6 more months, would you guys still be on the air?
I don't know. I don't know if mornings was for me. And my brother and I, we love each other like brothers do, but I think there were some different ideas about how the show should work, and and I don't think they gave us enough time, though we weren't getting any numbers, and it probably wasn't the greatest show in the world. I think we had an idea and a vision where it might go, and we just never got a chance to do it. I don't know if it still would or not. I don't know. I tell you, I don't know how you do mornings. I did mornings for years in small market. I could never do mornings again, even if I guess you get paid enough, you do it if that's the slot. But getting up I don't know how you are, but man, once I'd get off the air and it'd be about 2:00 in the afternoon, I'm already thinking about I got to get going to bed pretty soon because I got to get up. I kind of like where I'm sitting right now in that slot. Yeah.
What's the future for Common Man?
I don't know. Do you know anything I don't know?
No. Seriously though, are you happy doing
this?
Do you love this?
And people always tell me that. And there's nothing else I can do. You make fairly decent money here. There's nothing I can do outside of this business that would make me the kind of money I'm making now, unless I became some super duper salesperson. But I don't know if I could do that. I don't have any kind of college education, as we talked about before. So I like what I'm doing. I still enjoy it quite a bit. You have your days, but I like it, and I'm hopefully that I've got another. I'm 53 now. I hope I got 10 more years in this market. I hope so, because I don't know about getting to another market. People always say, well, you could land somewhere else in another town. That can be very difficult to do because, again, I don't have your typical, I think I'm an acquired taste. And I think if I sent a tape of what I did out to a program director, he might go, this doesn't fit anything we're doing. What is he rambling about? What is he talking about? And they would abandon, what's this preposterous? Why does he keep saying that this is Eric Clapton when it's not Eric Clapton? I don't know if they would get that. And so I don't even know if I could land another job in another town.
You ever think about the fact that you've shaped a vernacular of the Twin Cities for 10, 15 years?
Well, it's fun. Yeah, we do. We've been hip phrase trendsetters, as I like to call it. Yeah, we have come up with a lot of different things, and it's to the credit of a lot of other people. People they pick up on it, or you take something else. Somebody they did the PA in Dubé did the I Always Loved That one. They had big voice guy doing I Always Loved That one. And for some reason, I started kind of mixing it with an Elvis Presley. I Always Loved That one, and people just loved it. I don't know why. I had people tell me, you don't want to do that. That's not going to go anywhere. But then it picked up, and people just loved it. Then that's how I Alto came about.
Yeah.
I Always Loved That one. So yeah, we have done the Rube thing. Same thing. Barrero one time said Rube on the air. I heard the word, never heard it before. So I immediately went to the dictionary, found out it was an unsophisticated hic. So I just started using Rube. Me, I just beat things into the ground. I just started calling everybody a Rube. Everybody was a Rube, and it picked up, and people started calling in and calling Rube, and then all of a sudden, boom, we got Rube Chat now. So yeah, I've had a knack for taking words or phrases that I think sound good, and if you repeat them enough and beat them into people's heads, it'll work. Yeah.
That's really cool. Common, this has been a lot of fun.
Me too. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, man. I could do this for another hour, but we can't because you got to go do your radio show and entertain the throngs of people out there at KFAN.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you, man. This has been episode 4 of Hawk TV. We'll see if we get an opportunity to do it again. Until then, thank you for tuning in.
They never did like Mama's homemade dress. Papa's banquet wasn't big enough. And I was standing on the side of the road, rain falling on my shoes. Heading up for the East Coast, Lord knows I paid some dues getting through. Tangled up in blue.